Now we have Drew Friedrich,
Yes,
Orphans Promise. Who is representing Orphans
Yes.
Promise, another amazing ministry part of CBN.
Absolutely.
But Drew, please tell us a little bit more about yourself and about
Sure.
Orphans Promise.
Yeah, so I'm the director of marketing for Orphans Promise. Been here a couple of years now, and I have the best job in the world because I get to tell the stories of what we're doing because of our donors.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, we're helping 100,000 kids a year. There's 140 million orphans in the world, which is just a crazy number if you think about it. And so we have an opportunity every single day to feed them, to clothe them, to teach them about Jesus, to give them a safe place to live. We have anti-trafficking programs, so we're bringing women and children off the streets and giving them a chance to recover. And so I get to interact on social media, and we share stories on YouTube and through Facebook and all that good stuff. And so I oversee a team of a couple guys that help with that, but our team is tremendous, and God's really blessed Orphans Promise. So
Awesome.
Yeah, so for people that don't follow you on social media, how can they get connected with you?
Sure. So we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter at Orphans Promise, we're on Instagram at Orphans Promise. And so, you know, we're there every day sharing, again, pictures, stories, updates. Every Tuesday, Terry Meeuwsen, our founder of the Coast to 700 Club, does the Tuesdays with Terry.
Really good.
Check that out about 8:30.
Definitely.
It comes, but it'll be up all day, obviously, every Tuesday. And so she just shares kind of from her heart what God's teaching her a lot of times, or what He's teaching her about, you know, helping children.
Yeah.
She's encouraging our donors to get involved because everything we do is incredible, but we cannot do it without the support of our
That's
donors.
exactly
And so that's why we're blessed to be part of the CBN family. And if you're watching and you're a donor, one of the things that we appreciate so much about being part of CBN is we have all the financial accountability, we have all the oversight to know that when you give to us, your dollars are making it into the field and helping
Absolutely.
kids.
That's
So you're not
awesome.
just giving and wondering what happens. You see the stories on the 700 Club, you see them on
Yep.
our Facebook page, on our Instagram, you see what you guys are talking about. And so whether it be Operation Blessing or it be Orphans Promise or it be helping the home front, whatever the case may be, when you give to CBN, you give to Orphans Promise, you know without a shadow of a doubt your dollars are making a major
very
impact.
That is so true.
So-
And we've had several chances to speak with partners at our Council 100 weekends,
Yes,
and many of our
yes.
partners say that. They say that they know exactly where their money is going, and that is to be the hands and feet of Jesus throughout the world, to
Yep.
children,
Yep.
to families in need, as we just heard from about Operation Blessing. But can you give our followers just a little bit of background on how Orphans Promise
Sure,
started,
absolutely.
how it all began?
Yeah, so Orphans Promise began a little over 12 years ago. Terry Meeuwsen, our founder, adopted 3 girls from Ukraine. And when she brought them home, she realized there were many orphans still staying in the orphanage. And the oldest of the 3 girls was 12 at the time. And when you turn 15 in an orphanage in Ukraine, you legally have to leave the orphanage. And then you've basically been given no training, no education, and you're out in the world kind of on your own. And we just felt like that's not God's plan for these kids.
Yeah.
And so we started with one training center where we offered education and job skill training and life skill training, how to manage money, how to build relationships. And we saw these kids just begin to flourish and bloom after they were already kicked out of the orphanage. And so they were able to now stand on their own 2 feet to build lives of their own, and God was blessing them. And so we saw that, and now that's gone from one training center to now 280 projects in more than 60 countries around the world.
Amazing.
But it was really just Terry saying yes to God, telling her, adopt these 3 girls, which didn't make a lot of sense at the time.
Right.
She had 4 kids already. You know, she had a full-time job at the 700 Club,
Right.
but she
Wow.
felt without a shadow of a doubt that God was saying, I'm not calling you to kind of put it in neutral and head into retirement. I want you to adopt these 3 girls, raise them
Wow.
up. I want you to start something that you just need to trust me on. Because
Yeah,
we had
that's
no
good.
idea that Orphans Promise was going to be what it is now. It was just
Right.
going to be a training center. We were just going to be in Ukraine. And now we're in, again, Haiti and Cuba and Ecuador and Kenya. I mean, all these places.
Wow.
And that's God opening those
Yeah,
doors. And whenever He
exactly.
opens, we just kind of keep walking.
That's right.
But we walk with the support of our CBN donors. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how it's all happened, how it's grown. So.
It's amazing.
So incredible. Like,
It really
he's a father
is.
to the orphans, and you guys are just going in and being, we keep saying it, but
Yeah.
the literal hands and feet of Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
you are doing it too.
Exactly.
Which
Absolutely.
is so cool that you are doing it too. I'm doing it too. Ash is doing it
I'm
too.
doing it.
Drew's
That's right.
doing it.
Absolutely.
Because we're all part of the CBN family.
Yeah.
Jason
That's right.
behind the camera's doing it. He
Yeah.
just told us.
Ben's doing
Yeah.
it, the tech dude behind the
Yeah.
camera.
We're all loving on these kids just
Yeah.
by giving our support.
Yeah.
So, Drew, tell us a little bit about 2017,
Sure.
some highlights, maybe some trips you guys went on. Tell us about 2017.
Yeah, it was an incredible year. Definitely our biggest year ever, and we
Nice.
just kind of continue to keep growing.
Yeah.
There's actually a great year in review video on our Facebook page if people wanted to check it out. But we
Great.
kind of give some scope to what it is that we do because, again, we do 6 kind of key areas: education, nutrition, discipleship, community transformation, family care, and anti-trafficking.
Amen.
And so we want people to know that they're impacting all those various areas when they give to Orphans Promise. But specifically for me, I traveled to Kenya to see some of our work there. And it was just incredible to see. There's children there who literally were living in the dirt in a field, had no parents, they were sick, they weren't eating very much, and now they've been given a new life. They're living in a children's home as a family. They're being parented, they're being raised up in the gospel. We're opening up a leadership academy there with our partner on the ground in Kenya, where we're going to literally be training kids from kindergarten on with biblical principles to grow up in financial, and as they learn English and as they learn math and science, because what we want to do is change the cause of poverty, change the cause of orphanhood, rather than just addressing the symptoms after the fact. And so as we come in and start at that very young age, and again, our supporters are making that possible, then we begin to see the future of Kenya change, because now there's not all these orphans who are just in need, but they're actually contributing to society, they're changing society, and they're doing it with the biblical principles that they've been built on. So Kenya was an amazing trip. The country's beautiful. There's parts of it that look like the Lion King, and there's parts of it that look like downtown Norfolk. You know, you've got really developed areas and really kind of desert areas. But when we were there, you know, we also saw another organization we partner with in the slums of Kenya. And again, these, I mean, if you could see the shacks that these people live in, it's just kind of corrugated metal, and anytime there's a storm or rain, it's flooding. And you know, you can imagine we've got kids trying to keep your kids safe and warm and those kinds of things. But again, this school is bringing them in, educating them, sending them to college. It's a really neat organization. They've actually started bottling their own water so they can sell that. Now they're becoming self-sustainable. And so again, what we want to try and do is eliminate the causes of poverty and the causes of orphanhood before it ever begins. And so we partner with organizations who are really looking to make a deep, lasting change. And we're starting to see that take place. So Kenya was incredible. We were in Ukraine, which was really neat, because as we really launched our training centers and launched additional projects in Ukraine, that was really 10 years ago. Even though the organization's been around 12, 10 years ago is when we really launched. And so to be back in Ukraine 10 years after and celebrate the anniversary with those people, and they are just so joyful, and it's so welcoming. There was actually the celebration of the 500-year anniversary of the Reformation. And so Terry Meeuwsen spoke there along with Nick Vujicic. And there was 500,000 Ukrainians in the streets. I mean, it's a massive celebration. There's never been anything like it in the history of Ukraine. And so again, we're just seeing God kind of open doors, and hope is rushing in, and the gospel is rushing in. And when that happens, lives can't help but be changed. And so it's pretty neat for us to get to be a part of that, and certainly to see it firsthand and watch as, I mean, 500,000 Ukrainians in a country that's been torn by war and just religious strife, to stand there and just proclaim Jesus as Lord and to be a part of that, and then to have them also recognize that it's so important for them, the church, to take an active role in the lives of these orphans and these kids in need. And so over the last probably 8 years, there's been this tremendous boom in adoption in Ukraine. And we were a small part of that, but there's this kind of global picture of Ukraine without orphans. And the idea is, and it's true everywhere in the world, if the church would stand up and every church would adopt one kid, there wouldn't be an orphan in the world. And so it's really trying to call the church to a higher place to say, God is calling all of us to get involved, whether that be giving, whether that be adopting, whether we wrap our arms around families who are adopting, because it can be a tough process. But we can't just sit on the sidelines and say we're not going to do anything. And so it's pretty neat for us to again be a part of that, but then to also be able to invite other people to step into that with us and say, support us financially, pray for us, go with us, go adopt the kid. Because God does the work. We just kind of lay the groundwork, and He takes it from there. So
that's so good. I love how, you know, when you really invest in a child's life, you really are changing the world, because they're the next generation.
Absolutely.
So if you are eliminating poverty and you know, reuniting kids with their families, it's amazing.
Well, and that's a really interesting thing too, is what we found out is, there's 140 million orphans in the world, but very few of them have actually lost both parents. A lot of times they've lost one, or a parent may be in jail, or the parent just can't support their kids, and so they end up putting them in a children's home. And as a father, I can't imagine, as much as I love my kid, loving him that much, but knowing I can't provide for him, so he needs to go live somewhere else. So there's actually been a story on Telethon this week of Adamir, and it's a tremendous story. The mother was heartbroken over having to give her child up, but we came in and said, hey, we'll help you generate some income, we'll help you train and understand how to keep your kid at home. And so Adamir came back home, with his family,
Such a
and
good
that's the goal for
testimony.
us. Is we want kids in a loving family environment, and the best case scenario that God designed is for them to be in their own family.
Yeah.
And so when we're able to
Amen.
step in and help that happen, then it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Now
Yeah.
there's not an orphan. Now a family's generating their own income.
Yep.
And really God is showing up, and it's just a testament to His grace in the lives of those families.
Amen.
So
So
keeping families
good.
together is
Yeah.
really at our heart.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Come on,
changing the
guys.
world
This is
one
so
kid at a
good.
time, one family at a time.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
So Drew, can you give us a little insight, like from a personal perspective,
Sure.
what it's like, being a part of, working for Orphans Promise?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's certainly encouraging. At times it's convicting, I think, because you recognize, especially with the partners we have in the field, are so incredible. So, you go to a place like Kenya and you see the kind of investment these people are making. They're giving their lives away to help these children. And it really is kind of a gut check to say to yourself, what are you, yes, you're on social media, and that's important. We want to
Yeah.
communicate, we want to tell our donors.
Yeah.
But what are you doing with your life to invest in making a difference in the lives of others?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's important to kind of always remember that. We always, we meet weekly as a team to pray. We've got staff meetings with our marketing department, and we always want to keep at the forefront of our minds.
Yeah.
What are we doing other than just creating videos, just taking photos, and so I think to me it's a blessing, it's a gut check, and it's God's constant reminder to me of, you've got it really good, Drew, and you need to make sure that you pass that blessing along,
Yeah,
that you're
yeah.
investing in the lives of other people, and that you're telling other people about it. Because I think a lot of times people hear the orphan problem feels like it's so far away.
Yeah.
In America, we don't have children's homes, we have a foster care system, and so sometimes they can't make that connection between what an orphan really is. But when you go
Right.
see it with your own eyes, it really transforms, and you begin to understand there's a lot of need in the world that we can't really relate to.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's just, it's been a game changer. It's been a life changer for me to be
Yeah.
a part of it.
Yeah.
The work itself is what I enjoy doing. I
Yeah.
love social. I love connecting and that kind of thing. But I think actually seeing and being able to hug those kids and
Oh, yeah.
love on them, and then recognize that as a father, I've got stake in the game to raise my son up to know, hey,
Yeah.
there's kids that don't have it as good as you have it,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
so we need to raise up the next generation of orphans in a safe environment. But we need to raise up our own kids to know, hey, it
right,
doesn't
yes.
stop here.
Yeah, that's
There's
right.
a generation of CBN donors right now, and there's a
Yeah.
whole nother generation coming behind them.
Exactly.
And we've got to make sure we're kind of building on these blocks so that we keep doing what we're doing for a really long time, because God's plan is the long run. It's
Yeah.
not just tomorrow, not just the next day. It's we want to keep helping kids for years
Yeah.
to come.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly.
And
yeah.
you guys can be a part of it. You guys can help right now. If you are not already a partner, you can do so
Yes.
today. Just
Absolutely.
comment below, ask for more information. We will send you a link to partner with
We'll
us
talk
today.
to you.
Exactly.
We love
I
talking
mean,
to you.
if hearing this isn't
Yeah.
already confirmation to be a partner just to donate to Orphans Promise, I mean, come on. Like, it's just, what's holding you back? What's holding you back from changing the
That's right.
lives of precious children all around the world?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Well,
amazing.
and Pat says it all the time. God, the one thing God says the testament is you're giving. And so I think when you give, the benefit, again, of giving to something like an Orphan's Promise and a CBN is you're not giving and wondering what's happening with my
That's
money.
right.
You
Yeah.
know beyond a shadow of a doubt. You know that the majority of every dollar you give is making its way into the hands of a kid or a family in need or a
So
disaster
true.
relief
Yeah.
issue. And so on top of that, then you see God's blessing in your life.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and
Yes.
that's the one thing we say to all of our people, and we hear from our donors time and time again, is it's a blessing to be a blessing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so
Yes.
that's the opportunity that we all have is God has blessed us with financial
Yeah.
blessings or jobs or whatever the case may be. We can't just sit back on our laurels and say,
Yeah.
that's plenty. Thank you,
Right,
God, for that.
right.
It's show him your thanks by investing in
By
the lives of others,
investing.
by giving back, by being a blessing to someone
Exactly.
else. So,
We just talked about that, the law of reciprocity, sowing and reaping, and that spiritual principle, kingdom principle
Yeah.
with Gordon yesterday. We just
Yeah.
talked about that. The importance of, even if you don't think you have enough, it's by sowing and giving what you do have out of your need that God abundantly blesses
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because this is the work of our Father. The Father that I know loves little orphans
Yeah.
and loves kids, loves his
Yeah.
people. And so when we go to the least of these and we help those, that's his work. So he's
Yeah,
going
that's
to
right.
give us. If we want to be, if we want to flow through,
Yeah.
and give, he's going to give us money to give.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
absolutely.
definitely keep that. Ask him today. Ask him to give you money to give,
Yeah.
to partner and become part of.
Well, and I think it's
Yeah.
important for us to remember, too, that these believers in other countries are a part of our family.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you had a family
Yeah.
member in need, you wouldn't hesitate to reach out and help.
Absolutely.
And so I think,
Yeah.
again, a lot of times it
That's
feels
good.
so distant or so far off. But the truth of the matter is, if we're really honest about it, we look at it from a biblical perspective, those are our brothers and sisters.
Amen. We're all
Yep.
part
And
of
they
the
desperately
kingdom.
need our help. And so, again, we're blessed to get to do what we do, but we only do it when you support us. And when you support us, know that we take your love and your prayers and your support with us. And also know that from an Orphans Promise standpoint, our kids are praying for you guys.
Yeah.
In many cases, we've got every single day at some of our projects, they gather, and the first thing they do is pray and thank God for Orphans Promise, thank God for Orphans Promise donors. So again, it's a
on.
blessing to be a blessing, but you're blessed in return when you see
That's
those
right.
kinds of
Yes.
things, when you hear these kinds
Exactly.
of stories. And so when you see stories like Adamir's, or I think we're going to see Vivian's story here in a minute,
Yeah.
you know, these are kids who had no hope. And God just showed up and said, hey, I've got a better plan for your life.
Yeah.
But he uses us as tools to do that. And these tools are provided by donors to CBN and Orphans
Yes.
Promise.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank
if you
you.
Thank
are
you.
already a part of the CBN family,
Yes.
thank you.
We
Yes.
love you guys
Thank
so
you.
much. And if you decide to partner with us today, you give and then you get something. This is the latest DVD from Pat Robertson and Scott Ross. It's about answered prayer, how to get answered prayer. Pat is amazing, as you know. He's grown this ministry from the ground up, all through prayer.
Yep.
All through prayer. And all this week, we continue to hear stories of the past of how they prayed in payroll, they prayed in the show, they prayed in cameras, all that stuff.
Yes,
He
true,
prayed
yeah.
in Orphans Promise
Sure.
and Operation
Yeah.
Blessing. I mean,
Yeah.
he is awesome. So
Well,
I
and
know
we
this
don't
will be a
make
gift.
we don't make any decisions at Orphans Promise without praying. You know, so even
we
this
go.
week, as
Yeah.
you're giving and you're thinking about giving for telethon, you know, we're taking a look at the money that's coming in, and we're prayerfully considering, God, what do you want us to do in 2018?
That's good.
Where can we go help kids this year? But all of that is done under the auspices of prayer, because we want to be sure that we go where God wants us and not
Yeah.
where we think we need to go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he continues to guide, and we continue to grow, because if it's God who gives the increase,
Yep.
and we just kind of follow his lead.
Yeah.
So-
Plant
Right.
the seed. Plant
That's
the seed.
right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Christina says, what is the address for Orphans Promise? I'm assuming she's talking about the web address to get
Sure.
connected.
So it's orphanspromise.org. Pretty straightforward. We've actually got a new website coming in a couple months, so keep an eye out for that too, because it's going to be beautiful. I think it'll be a great way for you
Yeah.
guys to keep up with what we're doing. But orphanspromise.org is a great way to reach us. And then if you're looking at mailing, we have the same address as CBN does. We're right here on CBN's campus. We're in the same offices. And so, you know, I just want to touch on that for a second if I can. Gordon Robertson is the one who gives us the ability to do what we do, who gives us the freedom and drives with passion to say, hey, CBN's mission as a whole is to go into the world, and Orphans Promise is the children's arm of that. So when you see that we're here in CBN's offices,
Yeah.
you know, we're with Gordon on a regular basis. He's constantly talking to us about, this is your mandate. Go,
Yeah,
go
it
help,
is.
go love, go
Your
serve.
mandate.
And so when you give to Orphans Promise, you're giving to the beliefs, the mission, the values of CBN. We share them. We are in 100% agreement with them. And
Yeah.
so we're just so thankful for Gordon's leadership.
Yeah.
Because without that, I think, you know, it's easy to get complacent or kind of lose your way, but he's laser focused on, this is what God
So
has called
good.
us to do as an
Yes,
organization,
that's right.
and we're not going
Yeah.
to stop until it's done. So
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing that.
Good
It's really
stuff.
good.
Yeah.
All right, before we go really quickly, Daisy is thanking God today. Tina says, give, give, give. This is the Christian way. It's a way to show our
Amen.
faith. You're so right.
Amen.
Yes.
Where God guides, he provides. That's what
Amen.
Amanda says. He is a faithful God. Bring your tithes to the storehouse and see that he will not open up the floodgates of heaven.
Come on.
Thank you for
Amen. I
sharing
love
that,
it.
Right.
Amanda.
I love it.
That is so awesome. And then HR is saying, Lord, thank you. Rosemary is saying, God bless your ministry.
Thank you,
so
Rosemary.
thanks for
Thank you,
watching.
guys.
Absolutely.
We're going to show you a really neat story. Can you give us a little synopsis of
Yeah.
it?
Sure. So this is Vivian. She's actually one of the girls from the school I'm telling you about in Kenya. So one of the kids that was sort of left for dead, for lack of a better term. There just wasn't much hope there. But this LFI is Living Faith International, is this children's home where these kids are receiving the gospel. They're being parented. They're in church. It's really cool. We actually did a music CD with these kids a year ago
right,
to give them a voice, because we felt like these kids needed something that was their own. And it was really neat to see all of them kind of come alive, and all of a sudden they took ownership of these songs. They put their own Kenyan twist on them. And those are available through the CBN store. It's called the Freedom Project.
Great.
But again, LFI is just a place where God is raising up the leaders of tomorrow in Kenya. And so Vivian's story is one, again, where you see no hope, brokenness, desperation, and then God shows up through Orphans Promise, and now she's in school, she's succeeding, and her future looks entirely different than it would have otherwise. It's cute. She prays about taking a test in school, and God helps her, find the answer. But
So
again,
sweet.
that's to me, that's the mindset.
Yeah.
You don't hear many kids talk about, I was having trouble with a test, so I stopped and prayed to God. But these kids know God's all they've got in many cases.
Exactly.
And so they don't grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth. They don't grow up entitled. They know without a shadow of a doubt they have to rely on God for everything.
Yeah.
And so we're just privileged to kind of be a part of their lives. When we met them this summer in August, I think every one of us walked away going, I want to be like those kids when I grow up because they're so amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
You know, the really neat thing about Kenya too is they speak English, and so some of these kids have not had as much English that they've learned, but we got to really communicate with them and hear their stories of redemption. And so Vivian's is a great one. I think you guys will really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's coming up right now. Changing generations.
Yep. Thank you guys so
Absolutely.
much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Drew.
Thank you guys for having me. It's
Thank
always a
you.
pleasure.
God
So,
bless you guys and have a good day.
yeah,
See you next
God
time.
bless.